Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May monthly roundup episode of We Interrupt This Broadcast. Your hosts this month are myself, Robbie Miles, and Aven Yap. Aven, how are you?
This month has been really exciting for me, Robbie. I have been in the casting and financing stages of a feature film, Piano Mums, for quite some time, and we have just confirmed a major internationally recognized director of photography and editor, and that is extremely exciting. 10 years ago, I would have never imagined that I would be having these sorts of conversations. So I'm celebrating the little wins.
I'm very thrilled to hear that, and congratulations, Aven. I think it's really important, as you said, to celebrate the little wins because they come few and far between, and this can be a marathon, not a sprint. But it's great to hear you building your team.
And how about yourself? How's your May been?
May has been terrific. Moving forward on a project I've alluded to on here before, but also did a table read for a feature just this week. It's a wonderful thing to hear a story on its feet for the first time with actors and just how much they bring to it and how much the story changes when actually spoken out loud. But otherwise, just very excited for Sydney Film Festival coming up.
And what's coming up for the Sydney Film Festival for you?
Well, I'm particularly keen to see The Invite, and I also have tickets to see Hen and Silenced on opening night. And also, as I mentioned in the live stream the other week, I am producing a very special Lifetime Achievement Award event for director Peter Weir, who will also be doing an In Conversation with Rob Carlton, reflecting on an incredible run of films over his very storied career.
You have to tell our listeners the story of how you met Peter Weir in person.
I will tell you a story how I met Peter Weir in person. In putting together the event, Rob Carlton, who's hosting the event, very kindly invited my wife and I and one of my colleagues to go and see his stand-up show. And getting off the bus in Newtown on the way to the show, lo and behold, stepped off the bus and like a Bigfoot sighting, I ran into Peter Weir and his daughter Ingrid. So I feel like I've already had my big win moment of actually getting to meet and shake the hand of the legendary Peter Weir. My wife pointed out that I don't really get starstruck. I've been lucky enough to be somewhat immunized to that from years of Comic Cons, etc. But this was definitely a pinch me moment. It was sort of shaking like a leaf afterwards.
This month, we heard some tragic news coming from Queensland, my home state, that Bobby Lee Dionysius has unfortunately passed away, losing her battle with cancer. And this news hits especially hard because the Brisbane film community is extremely tight knit. Bobby Lee was the co-chair of Women in Film and Television Australia, or WIFT Australia, and spent many years chairing and co-representing the Queensland chapter of the organisation. Most recently, Bobby Lee was deeply involved in supporting regional creatives through the WIFT national initiative Postcode Doesn't Matter, working alongside co-chair Anissa Belanongoff on a program she cared for immensely. I have personally witnessed how much of a force of nature Bobby Lee is. She has done literally every role under the sun. She's an award winning creative, an impact producer. She is so dedicated to telling stories that mattered, championing social issues through documentaries, factual content, even VR 360 experiences. Filmmaker Lark Lee did a beautiful tribute on her Instagram to Bobby Lee. And she said that oftentimes, as filmmakers, we have a lot of anxieties that we aren't making our movies fast enough and that we want to get to the destination as soon as we can. But one thing that Bobby Lee really impressed on Lark and also to me is that we need to enjoy the journey. I send my deepest condolences to friends and family and loved ones of Bobby Lee on behalf of We Interrupt This Broadcast. Vale, Bobby Lee Dionysius.
Ballet Bobby Lee. Thank you so much for sharing that, Evan. That was beautiful. So, speaking of the journey, and if that's not too ham-fisted a segue, I think it leads us right into something very exciting that has been finally launched about that journey that we are all on. This is the Mental Health Action Plan released by Screenwell. And I'd really like to shout out the amazing work of Jonathan Dutton and Ben Steele and all of the consultants and people they brought together for this incredibly important piece of work. No, there would not be a single person listening to this who hasn't experienced some form of toxic workplace or bullying and the difficulty of being vulnerable in this industry, and just how much it means for people to be compassionate, to demonstrate good leadership. Often we only recognize good leadership because of the absence of it. And the ideal that we'd like to have. So I think that not only will this work help highlight some issues that have long gone disregarded or considered unimportant to budgets and help people to understand that healthy and safe workplaces and psychosocially healthy workplaces just make for better work and more sustainable careers.
You know, you're so right. It's this silent pandemic that we're not really talking about in this industry because we're too afraid of losing our jobs, or we're too afraid of our reputations being compromised to speak out. I've personally gone through hell and back in this industry. I think a lot of people have. You don't get to eat at the buffet without eating some dirt first. A study like this, I hope, will make a big difference to our industry, much like how the study for seeing ourselves on screen made a huge impact on diversity in 2016 that Screen Australia released.
Certainly, and recognizing it and talking about any of these things is, the first step to seeing action. And what I think is wonderful about this mental health action plan is it starts off with some very concrete recommendations, things that we can do now, and then longer term recommendations and how we actually build that sustainable longevity in careers. Because, like you said, it gets uncomfortable to talk about those things that happen, and you can try and brush them off. And I've got gaps in my own resume. People who know me could look closely and find out exactly why I might have put them there. So to anyone out there, especially experiencing some of these things on set or in any of their jobs, know that you're not alone. You're very much seen, and there are people to talk to. And do read the mental health action plan and advocate for yourselves, and look for those colleagues, mentors, and people outside the productions that you can speak to, because these are real issues that have real effects. It's a high accountability environment that we're in production. Unlike an office job where some of this work can wait till tomorrow, when you're on set, on deadline, if you don't get the shot, there can be millions of dollars at stake, but people absolutely need to come first. We've touched on some things here, and I'd like to encourage everyone in the show notes. We have some links to resources to help both with the mental health action plan, but to think about anxiety and depression and difficulties in the workplace. And we want to make sure that you're supported by this podcast as well. Issa Rae has partnered with TikTok and her production company, Hooray Media.
I think this is quite an interesting development because Issa Rae is known as the TV queen of serialized relationship dramas. This is a 27 episode serialized relationship drama by Issa Rae that was released on TikTok and their dedicated microdrama app, Pine Drama. Robbie, you will not believe the numbers. Over 100 million views within its first week since it debuted. 100 million views. I saw an article that at Cannes, Kristen Stewart opened up about her frustration with Hollywood's bureaucracy and capitalistic systems and why she doesn't want to direct big budget films. I think there's a growing discontent that's now becoming quite public that the traditional way of doing things is taking way too long when momentum and speed is king in 2026. So we'll have to watch this space. Perhaps we'll be seeing a lot more of our favorite creators, actors in vertical dramas and series.
I think that's a fantastic point. And, for years, movie actors weren't really doing television. And then that's where the most interesting work was. And that's where the most eyeballs were. So you started to see, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey and Jodie Foster and these amazing artists and actors coming to television. And now with Vertical, as you said, it's going where the eyeballs are. I quote this all the time, but Kevin Smith once joked around saying, I need to express myself, give me $20 million in Ben Affleck. And the difficulty in trying to get together all the pieces to do a traditional feature film, it doesn't have that momentum, and you're building so many things from scratch, whereas artists are always going to find a way to tell the story they want to tell. For the longest time, people were like, oh, I really want to do indie film. All the way through the late 90s is like all I wanted to be was an American indie filmmaker, because that's what I saw and that was what I idolized. But that was an expression of, okay, we've got the access and we're doing it now. And the access has been getting easier and easier and easier if you can prove an audience. And looking now, as I said, the people who might be established artists in traditional media, even them going to TikTok and going to vertical, because they know that their audience wants to interact with them. And if they can interact with them directly, it's leading to views like this. A lot of people might start with online, hoping to one day get to traditional media, television or film, but it's happening in reverse and it's having a huge impact.
The funny thing is, when I'm attending creator events, everyone wants to be everyone else. Creators want to make TV. TV producers want to become creators. It's this weird time where the grass always seems greener on the other side, but it also is reflective of the times. There is a serious transition of power that's happening here, where somebody that makes a great video in their bedroom can have way more of an impact than TV budgets that are bleeding money.
Also, knowing that a development cycle can take 3 to 5 years, or longer, and that means that the artist who's putting together that work has to be thinking 3 to 5 years ahead of where's society going to be then? How is what I have to say right now relevant, rather than just saying it straight into a phone? and putting it out there and then seeing who responds. It's a really radical form of development. And with a project of mine that I'm working on that's now become a TikTok animated series, we're even thinking about launching it just at animatic stage
Mm.
because, as you've said, everything is content and starting to build the audience that way before deciding where else to spend our funds.
So everyone's been talking about the budget. Budget, budget, budget. And whilst a lot of people have been paying attention to the CGT changes and the housing reforms, there are a number of changes that are quite meaningful to our screen sector. There's a mix of direct screen industry support, small business measures, and broader economic initiatives aimed at investment and sustainability. Some of the highlights worth mentioning, though, is that the budget includes new support for the National Film and Sound Archive, the ABC, SBS, and the commercial broadcasting tax has also been suspended for a further 2 years, which will deliver an estimated $111 million of savings to the sector. I think this is a really fascinating budget, and people have been making all kinds of comments about it. But Screen Producers Australia has released a breakdown of what this means to its membership. So if you would like to understand what the federal budget means to you, go and check out Screen Producers Australia's latest newsletter, which contains some information about that.
And a few smaller news items that are worth mentioning while we're all here. So, The Hollywood Reporter is launching in Australia later this month, which is terrific news. Again, more industry publications, more places to promote work and talk about what's happening in the industry is always a good thing. But please, of course, come to us before you go to them. And patron of ACTA AFI, George Miller's request for an extraordinary general meeting of AFI ACTA members has been rejected. So, we'll be watching any news from ACTA very closely. There's a really cool piece of news that I think is so worth highlighting and sharing. The SAFC, the South Australian Film Corporation, has bid a very fond farewell to Leanne Ridley, who retires this month from her role as SAFC receptionist after an incredible 25 years of service. As soon as we had heard about this at the podcast, we thought it's such a great opportunity to sing out about some of the unsung voices. Not only is 25 years of loyalty and dedication something to be so proud of, but also it is all these roles like receptionists and the first face that you see each day on production, or the runners, or the people who are in what have been called support functions, but are truly the lifeblood of all the productions that we work on. And even I think they referred to Eric Estradas, who was on the front desk at Animal Logic, as director of first impressions. And I thought that was such a wonderful title because it does impact, it has such an impact on the rest of the organization and how everyone else works. So I want to really shout out Leanne, who I was never fortunate enough to meet, but I know is beloved in the industry. To industry movements, Zahra Nalbandian, I'd like to congratulate him on being appointed to the board of the National Film and Sound Archive. I think that's an incredible get for the NFSA, and obviously he's a towering figure in our industry who will be, I'm sure, of great influence and support to the NFSA.
We have a few industry opportunities to pay attention to. Screenworks Regional to Global is happening from the 9th and 10th of September.
It happens in Lennox Head, and Screenworks, obviously a tremendous organisation doing great work to help regional filmmakers across Australia. And so in that regional to global conference, they usually bring together an array of fantastic guests and speakers, some zooming in, but many live. And one of the things I loved about it when I've attended in the past is that for those 2 days, it brings together a great group of people that all of the delegates have great access to. So any regional practitioners highly recommend you get along to regional to global because, as I said, the access to high-level industry people is in a really favorable ratio as compared to some other big industry events.
Screen Australia also announced that they are launching a First Nations Factual Co-Production Development Fund to elevate Indigenous storytelling in global markets, as well as reopening SBS Digital Originals for applications.
Terrific. And in excellent news, Screen New South Wales has announced the recipients of their shorts to feature. And I'm very pleased to congratulate David Marr and Rebecca Metcalf with Hostiles, and the filmmaking team of Jack Dodds, Abby Galloway, Hannah Ray Megan, and Monique Terry with short and feature film, both titled Meat Raffle. I think this is an incredibly exciting time to see short films being again treated as the pathways to feature that they traditionally have been, and just how important short films have been to significant Australian filmmakers.
So, what are you going to be watching, Robbie?
I have been catching up and I'm late to the party on this, but The Amazing Digital Circus is fantastic and I've loved watching that. But also this week I am super excited, embarrassingly enough, for the Kylie docuseries, partly because I know how much my wife will enjoy it.
Meanwhile, I exclusively watch YouTube and Instagram at the moment, and right now I'm watching Kareem Rama's Keep the Meter Running. This is a new docu-series, I would say, that YouTube has unveiled from Alex Cooper, Trevor Noah, Kareem, and more. And how should I describe it? It's like an extension of Subway Takes, which you probably would have seen the short form version of online. But Kareem just goes into taxis and tells the taxi driver, keep the meter running, and he interviews them. And it's just fascinating insight into the migrant experience in New York City. I love the creative so much. Kareem is so magnetic to watch as a personality. But the commercial vision behind this series is what really fascinates me. Because similar to Issa Rae, similar to Kristen Stewart, Kareem just said, I can't wait anymore. I've been wanting to develop this into a long form TV series. And he got pushback from broadcasters and financiers saying, can we turn it into more of a competition game show format? Can we do this? Can we do that? And he said, screw it. I'm just going to put it on YouTube, leverage his existing audience that he's built by doing Subway takes for so long, and it is doing extremely well. YouTube is apparently starting to let marketers buy sponsorships and add inventory for individual creator shows, just like TV. How fascinating is that, Robbie? It's like YouTube was trying to be anti TV, and now they are the new TV. It's swings and roundabouts, this world and industry, isn't it?
It is, and everything old is new again because you just reminded me of something that used to play late night in the late 90s called Taxi Cab Confessions. That was all that. It was traditional TV that was shot in the back of taxi cabs and people gathering the stories of real people. So to see all these cycles come back around again, I think is fascinating. Massive amount of international production activity here at the moment. I would highly recommend checking out Screen Australia's website and also your local state agencies to get an idea of what's shooting near you or what's coming up. But Avon, what are some of the highlights?
Shooting here in my home state of Queensland, Dancing with the Stars The Next Pro, hosted by none other than teenage heartthrob Robert Irwin, who was the winner of the American Dancing with the Stars recently. Also in New South Wales, Return to Paradise Season 3 is in production, and Eyes Along the Valley by Cliff Stenders. And in Western Australia, Two Birds, which is the first production at the Perth Film Studios, the Stan and ITV co-production.
Terrific. And shout out to the Eyes Along the Valley team. Many moons ago, I worked for Johnny and Mike, and just great to see how prolific they've been with the films they've made over the last 10 years. Well, that's about it from us for this month. But I would say in Sydney, definitely get along to Sydney Film Festival that I've plugged before. Also, we are going to do another live Q&A. So after we've now got to our total of 1,000 followers, we're able to do
Yes!
Instagram Live. So set your reminders. Thursday, May 28th at 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The four of us will get on Yap and answer your questions and just have as good a time as we had last time.
You know what, Robbie? I was a bit of a skeptic when we realized that we didn't have enough followers to start our live stream. We were sitting at a measly 508, and we needed to get about 500 more within 3 days in order to be able to do our live stream. I thought, no way, this isn't going to happen. But lo and behold, I'm constantly surprised in this industry. People power. And we are so grateful as the host of this podcast for everyone who has followed our Instagram and really gotten behind us. We are trying to bring as much value as we can to the industry, and seeing you validate us and engage with us in such a meaningful way so that we can get our mission and vision out to the industry is extremely motivating and encouraging. So thank you so much.
Couldn't agree more, and we are so deeply grateful. And to think that maybe we wouldn't make that total is to underestimate Kirsty Stark, which I would say you do at your peril. She is an absolute force of nature, and we are very lucky to have her on our side, and you're working for the good guys. So again, that date is Thursday, May 28th, 8:30 p.m. We'd love to see you all live. And unless Avon has anything to add, we'll say, as we always do, now back to your regular programming.
We Interrupt This broadcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the
Gadigal people of the Eora Nation,
The Turrbal and Yagara people,
the Yugambeh language people, and the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and first storytellers of these regions.
Always was, always will be.